Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Hansen, Director of Education and Insights at NGA. Join me as I sit down with Craig Rosenblum, Principal at Columbus Consulting, as we break down the Technology Survey Insights from 2025.
As you mentioned, I'm a principal at Columbus Consulting. We are a retail consulting firm that help retailers and brands and grocers basically solve their challenges and transform their businesses. I lead our grocery practice and really help grocers focus on the key problems that they're facing with the industry, with their shoppers, to be competitive, to be more efficient, to grow candidly. And one of the biggest areas we focus on, of course, is technology and retail systems. For those who are unfamiliar with Columbus Consulting, we are in our 25th year of business. We are really passionate and experienced retail technology practitioners. Most importantly, we are experienced, as I said. Our average consultants across our team of almost 300 consultants average over 20 years of experience. We have lived in your shoes as a retailer. So we are very clear when you ask us to help you in understanding what it is we need to help you with versus you having to teach us your business to then tell you how to fix it along the way. The proof's in the pudding with that because we have almost 100% of our clients, either in their current companies or as they move company to company, ask us to work with them again. The other unique thing about Columbus Consulting and why I lead our grocery practice is we have hundreds of clients that stem across the industry. And while that is so unique, it's also really important and beneficial to the grocery folks that I spend so much time working with. Because as you think about things like omni-channel retail or warehouse and distribution or computer-aided ordering and perpetual inventory, these are all things that many of the other industries have been leading for many, many years, and we have the opportunity to take those experiences and transpose them over to the grocery industry. Our mission is really simple. It's really to help organizations like the NGA membership to really help them achieve their objectives, or whether it's increasing sales or optimizing margins or reducing costs. It's really to do that by delivering insights and transformation and change management. We'll talk more about that because as you see me stand on the bottom, technology is not the solution, it's truly the enabler that helps your people, your process, your technology, and your organization be aligned to solve those objectives you're trying to achieve across your organization. When you think about the prescriptive solutions that my team in Columbus Consulting work on with grocers, it really cuts across your entire organization, whether that be technology or strategy and leadership or resources. We have organizations that don't have the resources, that we are the outsourced resource. Of course, merchandising and category management. Today, you have to be very affluent in everything related to category management, your competition in the market. More importantly, than to deliver the best customer experience, whether that's in your store, or online, or in a marketplace. Of course, none of this, and we'll talk more about this, can be done without ensuring your data management, your analytics, people in your organization are using data to make you better, smarter, faster. We also work across store operations and efficiencies. How do we make sure your labor is efficient? How do we make sure your inventory is efficient? How do we make sure you're receiving efficiently? And then, of course, finance and M&A. Every retailer always wants to know where their numbers stand faster. How do you close your books faster? And we help with that, as well as how do I open new stores in the right places or make acquisitions. And then, of course, lastly, an end-to-end supply chain. How do I really understand how efficiently get products through either my wholesaler or through my back door to my consumers, and whether that is through my own resources or third-party resources to make sure that I can get them to where they need to be and to who they need to be as efficiently as possible. So our job is to be prescriptive across the entire organization. The 4-month period we conducted the study earlier in the year with the NGA audience and industry leaders and some of your board members. We asked them about to help understand what are their key systems, what are the key challenges they're facing, what are their priorities, and their strategic plans look like over the next 1 to 3 years to address their business, and particularly how to grow through technology. And what became very clear, and I'll talk more about this, is it really starts to form into three things, right? The old adage of people, process, and technology. But the reality is you have to have the right IT strategy and roadmap. You have to have the right organizational structure. And then candidly, you have to be prepared for the future. And while the future is now with AI or artificial intelligence, it certainly needs to be front and center for every organization because it will help you make you better, smarter, faster. And I look forward to discussing all this in more detail. The study consisted of almost 30 questions, 27 to be exact. It was open to all NGA retail members that participated. And as you see, we had a pretty good disbursement across the country. Half of them were mostly in the Midwest. As you think about store count, whether it was a single store operator to 100 plus store operators, we had about 75% of the participants that were somewhere between 1 and 25 stores. A pretty good makeup of independent grocery, candidly. As you also think about the sales, the reality is about 50% of the sale of those who participated had sales somewhere, 0 to $100 million, and another 25% were somewhere in the $100 to $500 million range. So the makeup of the participants and the results we saw, I think, were pretty indicative of the independent grocer landscape out there today. There are really 7 key learnings that I'd like to elaborate on. And then we'll, of course, talk about some of the foundation stones of the study, as well as then some of the implications as you think about how to take these findings forward as you think about the end of 2025 and beyond as you budget for 2026. First and foremost, many of the retailers out there we'll talk about have outdated systems that really limit your ability to compete and meet shopper expectations. Not only is it really just the systems are outdated, and you'll hear me talk about which systems that are many, that are your core to your organization, that are many, many years old, 5, 10 years or more in many instances. But more importantly, these systems that you have chosen, let's think about COVID and e-commerce specifically, that now maybe weren't the right systems, or you need to change as you think about it along the way. Or the solution you chose got acquired, or the solution you chose now be your competitor. It's very important to understand what the right system is and the resources you have organizationally put in place to select the right systems and or deploy the right systems, and more importantly, utilize the right systems. The other second key learning is that tech spending is rising. We had many of our participants, in the study talk about tech spending and it being 1 to 4%, which is a lot. But unfortunately, it's still not enough when you think about where some of the leaders or the national retailers you have to compete with in the industry, where their tech spending is in the absolute dollars and the amount they keep investing to keep their lead. Said another way, you're going to have to invest at an exponential rate in order to close the gaps, or more importantly, think about the prioritization of where you invest. Thirdly, unfortunately, as we looked at the analysis of the study and we compared the NGA retailers to the national chains, many of the national chains spend an inordinate amount of their time and resources and dollars in making sure their data is right, it's clean, it's actionable. More importantly, promotion, right? How do I drive greater promotion efficiency? How do I make sure every dollar I spend is getting the return on that investment? Said another way, when I put something in the ad, or I put something on an end cap, or I deliver something personally to a unique shopper in the way of a discount, how do I make sure that is giving me the return and the benefit I hope to get out of it? Unfortunately, as I said, grocers are really not prioritizing their time, their resources, and their dollars in these 2 areas. When you think about learning number 4, a lot has changed since COVID, right? Well, we may be 5 years. It may seem like 5 years was a long time ago, which it was. It almost feels like yesterday, or as we think about COVID being our rearview mirror. The reality is the industry has changed, shoppers have changed, the marketplace has changed, the competition has changed. Unfortunately, in too many instances, what has not changed is the category roles or the category strategies that you're choosing to deploy to ensure your competitive point of differentiation in your stores. And the reality is, given all of the influences that have changed or the shopper expectations, it is really essential you revisit your category strategies and your category roles. Number 5, operational technology is very important and a focus across retail. As I think about my 30 years in groceries, it's all about store operations, right? It's where the rubber meets the road. It's where the shopper sees how good or bad you truly are. And many retailers are really starting to understand this and really over investing as you think about operational technology, whether that is in perpetual inventory, whether that's in the deli and meal preparation and shrink analysis, whether that's in labor forecasting and replenishment. These are all areas that retailers recognize that I have to figure out how to invest and be efficient in my stores in order to ensure that my shopper has the greatest possible experience and wants to continue to shop with me over and over. Number 6 is the IT, gaps in the workforce and the reliance on external partners. As you look at your national competitors or the larger chains, they are exponentially investing in technology leadership, in expertise, in other parts of their organization to make sure they can control, right, their roadmaps, their strategies, their prioritization of who's working on what and when. Unfortunately, as you look at the analysis of our study, more than 2/3 of the retailers in the study really rely upon external partners or resources to either help them make decisions or, more importantly, manage those decisions or even be the resources for those decisions, which puts you in a very difficult place as a retailer because not always are your priorities their priorities, or can the resources be deployed when you need them or want them along the way. Lastly, e-commerce. Be remiss not talking about e-commerce and the impact on omni-channel retail as it is now, as we lovingly all call outside the store retail versus inside the store retail. And the reality is, many of these e-commerce platforms out there today no longer exist. They've either been acquired or, other third parties have come in to, run them or have, are basically competitors to you. So as you think about e-commerce, again, this is another area where either finding out who your right partner needs to be or getting the right white label solution so you can control your own destiny really enables you to continue to control what is going on in this omni-channel retail environment, whether it be online or outside your store, socially or digitally. The unfortunate reality is the heart of what you need and of your stores and the number one place you intersect with your shoppers are your point of sale. The reality is the point of sale, unfortunately, is the oldest system in many of the stores or many of the retailers that participate in the study. We saw that 80% of the participants, their point of sale systems were 5 years or older, and almost half of them had systems that were 10 years or older. Unfortunately, that makes it very difficult as you think about personalization, as you think about understanding of shopper behavior, as you think about the ability to personalize, do basket analysis. It's going to make it very difficult on a retailer to really take advantage of that data from your point of sale if your systems are antiquated. On the flip side of this also, we know change of point of sale systems are very difficult. And now you're being forced to have to make decisions on whether you want to move those systems to the cloud or not. The reality is change in this instance, unfortunately, inevitable. And I implore everybody that if your systems are truly this old, knowing the importance of them and of the data and everything that goes along with them from commerce and alike, that you need to update them. The other two big systems that were right behind those, which were also very challenging systems to update, were that of financial or ERP systems and that of order management systems. Both of these systems also are very old. So this goes back to where I started, that retailers have a daunting task ahead of them. You have to spend at a greater rate, and the systems that you need to update truly are your heart and lungs of your organization. On the flip side, we've also see, as you go back to my comments about store efficiency or store operational efficiency, that electronic shelf labels are starting to take hold. The reality is the pricing has come down. I'm sure many of us have looked at it over years, and the justification of hey, do I spend whatever the dollars to put these electronic shelf labels on the shelf? And how does that correlate then to the savings you get from price changes and alike and putting up shelf tags? The reality is it has come down quite a bit. And that, if you look at the study, almost half of the folks are using it or rolling it out, and another 25% are interested and thinking about testing it. So the reality is ESLs are here, and it's another opportunity for you as a retailer to continue to focus on how to drive store operational efficiency. When you think about the implications of the study, I ask you to think about them really in three major buckets that I want to talk to you about. The technology and your organization, and what does that look like, and how you're going to prioritize it going forward. The team, meaning your org structure and your capabilities and your resources, and of course, artificial intelligence. The first one, as you think about the technology, the reality is winning is going to require you to have the right technology stack, one that is flexible, not rigid, because technology is changing such a quick rate. And the reality is to put the right investments in the right place to enable you to drive growth and efficiency. This is going to be a daunting task. It's also going to be a challenge because, as you see in the chart below, while Grocers in the study shared with us that they are spending at a 1% rate, which is the same rate that actually Kroger and Walmart are spending at, the reality is 1% for a billion-dollar independent grocery retailer is only $10 million, whereas 1% for a Walmart or a Kroger is $1.5 billion. So as you think about how do you make these right decisions, it's imperative that you have the right IT strategy and roadmap and the right order in which you're going to go about which systems in order to maximize your return on that investment. Number two, the team. Technology leadership has never been more important. The days of having just an IT team or a CIO and they kind of sat over in a dark room and you watched all the green lights go up and down are days of the past. The reality is now you must have an IT leadership, an IT team, an IT structure that really helps the business drive everything it needs to, or enabling the business to drive everything it needs to be efficient. The reality is you're going to have the right people. Many of the new IT leaders out there in the industry are not just IT experts. They really understand the business. They really understand the finances. They come out of not just grocery, but many other parts of the industry because they need to understand everything from data to the shopper to back office infrastructure to cybersecurity. They're really truly unique individuals. But at the same time, as you think about those IT investments in the people, the reality is technology is just an enabler. In the end, what really makes great IT organizations great are not just their ability to help an organization pick and deploy and get the return on the investment, but really help ensure that projects get managed, things get deployed on time, and more importantly, the change management is deployed across the organization to make sure the benefits are achieved. Too many times we see that technology is acquired and many organizations think it's a silver bullet. The reality is it isn't. It will just enable the organization to achieve an objective, but it will all start with the necessary change management on making sure it's being utilized to achieve those objectives. The third one, as we talk about artificial intelligence, the reality is here today, it is now. What was a little disheartening, candidly, was that when you looked at the survey and the study, about half really said we're starting to think about artificial intelligence and incorporating organization. What was sad is really that half that said they were not. As we sit here getting ready to go into 2026, the reality is AI can impact every part of the organization. It will enable you to become better, smarter, faster. It will enable you to understand and make better technology decisions even faster. It'll enable you to understand your competition faster. It'll enable you to look across your operations and make smarter decisions in your stores. But it will also start with enabling you to make sure your data is clean so that you can understand your shoppers, your business, and your achieving objectives. I know we all, struggle with Walmart, and unfortunately, they are just a major daunting competitor, and they are continually just to widen the gap out there. They also continue to double down time and time again. We just heard it in July. We heard it again in August with this agentic AI framework. And you don't have to be a techie to understand all the pieces and parts per se about agentic AI. But what you need to understand is Walmart's deploying this across every faceted organization, whether it's Sparky and a new interface for their shoppers that enable them to now say, this is what I need, and no longer have to search up and down through their website. It's a very interactive interface that says, I am throwing a party. This is what I need. My child's going back to school. This is what I need. And it automatically starts to give you a very conversant discussion and answers to your needs. No longer you searching like we're all used to in Google. Marty for suppliers and advertisers is all about efficiency. How do I make sure I'm getting new items in? How am I making sure I'm getting promotions in? How am I making sure I'm buying data more efficiently or effectively, or buying media more efficiently, effectively? It's all about the efficiency of how do I work with those outside of my four walls. Associate agents for employees. How do I help my employees learn, train? How do I help them then utilize systems in the store more efficiently, effectively? How do I help them from customer service interface with the consumer even better? And then lastly, how they're even developing their own agents to continue to build their own technology, to continue to enable their analysts and technologists to build more and more technology at an exponential rate. So I implore you that if you are not starting to delve into AI in any way, shape, or form, get started. It is here, it is now, and it is going to be an integral part of enabling you to be better, smarter, faster, and more efficient as you move forward. We've been partnering, as I said, with NGA since the fall of last year. If you haven't seen it, please take a look at NGA's website, or the weekly mailer or that goes out. We have tech scan articles. We have a variety of articles we write on a monthly basis that feature many of the topics you heard me talk about here today. Point of sale, how to select new systems, change management, and many others. There are links here. Please, if you're trying to understand something, or you're trying to pick a new system, or you're just looking for an education, please use these resources as an opportunity to help further educate yourself. And if you have questions, it also give you the ability to find somewhere to get further questions answered. So with that, I thank you so very much for a few minutes of your time today. I hope it was educational, informational, but not too daunting at the same time, and more of a wake up on, we as an independent grocery retail industry have great opportunities. We just need to take advantage of them.
Thank you, Craig. That was really insightful to go through. It was helpful to see not only the insights and the implications, but also a bit about the survey design and where all of this information was collected. One of the key findings that you shared, I found to be interesting. National chains prioritize data and promotions, but grocers underinvest. You talked about how the age of the POS systems is notable for a lot of the survey recipients. But I'm curious, if you are helping a retailer prioritize in 2026, what is the one system, if you could only pick one, that you would help them consider and think about?
Kelly, it's an interesting question. We actually had a couple of retailers right now we've been working with that were aware of I have limited resources, right? I have limited intellectual capital. I have limited people resources. I have limited financial capital. And to try and build an IT strategy roadmap, right, on where do I go? How do I go, and where do I go first? Because as we all know, many leaders and organizations will always fight on who has the greater need, or where the dollar should go first. Today, I would say if I am a retailer and I don't have a good handle around my data, right, and my data management, I would probably look to invest there first and foremost. And the reason I say that is because that will become the heart and lungs that enables you to do everything more efficient across your organization. For example, today, many retailers, independent grocers, have data, but it's not clean. It doesn't have all the right columns, attributes, segments to it. So what does that cause? It causes then the merchant to take an export out of some system and go into Excel and fill in their own attributes to do their analysis. It causes finance to do the same thing as they're trying to close the books. More importantly, what it also causes is a big debate. What's the record of the truth, right? What are the right sales numbers, the right margin numbers as you think about it? So I'd say as you think about your data and going into 2026, I would start there because not only will it help you internally be more efficient and effective organizationally, it'll help you work with your vendors more efficiently, and also more importantly, will help you understand your shoppers. And by understanding your shoppers, that will further enable you to make better, smarter decisions as you move forward.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer. I think that goes back to, the old adage of the information, computers are only as helpful as the information that you put into them. And so if you're starting with bad information, you're going to end up with bad decisions and results. That
Garbage
makes a
in,
lot of
garbage
sense.
out, right? The old
Yeah.
adage to your point. Absolutely.
One of the other things that I thought would be interesting to unpack a little bit more is your emphasis on the team in place and making sure that there's people around the table that can make these really, big financially impacted decisions and making sure that they're thinking through all the pieces. You break it down in one of your blogs about talking about how the process is threefold. It's important to identify the right technology, prioritize the right technology, but also sequence them, thinking about the implementation and rollout from the team perspective. You've worked with a lot of retailers. I'm curious if there's one of those three areas that you've found to be the biggest roadblock amongst them.
I think the priority and sequencing is always the biggest roadblock with many of the retailers. When you sit in a room today with a leadership team, inevitably they all have needs across the organization. HR will say we have needs in our systems. Merchants will say we have needs. Operations will have needs, and so on. Like finance will say, we need a new ERP system so we can close the books faster. I think the reality is prioritizing or sequencing is going to have to really go hand in glove with your competitive landscape and your strategy, right? If your strategy is truly the one of we have to deploy a new loyalty program, right, to understand our shoppers so that we can drive better personalization and better differentiation in the marketplace, then we better have the building blocks in place to make sure that we have a loyalty, we understand who our shoppers are, a la CRM and customer relationship management and our shopper segmentations. We have to have a good handle then on our transactions and our point of sale and our baskets. We have to have the ability then to integrate and meet the shopper where they are, whether that be online with an e-commerce platform or socially or digitally along the way. So I would say, the sequencing really has to go hand in glove with your strategy and what you're trying to accomplish as an organization. And then from there, you can begin then the prioritization. Of course, if you had a cybersecurity issue, unfortunately, over the last year, and you have holes in your security platforms, that goes to the top of the line, right? I mean, your systems can't afford to be shut down, which has unfortunately happened to folks in our industry over this last year. So some of that gets automatically just driven, whether you like it or not. If you have systems that are being outdated, or being sunset or being replaced, you have to, on some of those back office things, deal with them first and foremost. But the reality is, I think your sequencing has to go hand in glove with your strategy on how you're going to compete in the marketplace.
It's helpful. Hey, you said it yourself. You shared a lot with us here today. You also have your contact information there, and also shared out about the resources that are available on the NGA website in addition to your own. But I'm curious if a retailer is feeling activated by this conversation, what's the first step in the process? How can you make this process a little bit of an easier lift on their end?
So it goes back to our slide on our mission. if you have an area and you need help, please contact me, right? If the area is one of increasing sales or increasing margin or increasing efficiency, we have to first understand what it is you're trying to accomplish. The reality is, there are many ways to get from point A to point B. You can crawl, you can walk, you can run, you can ride a bike, take a train or a plane. Our job at Columbus is to take our experience and our expertise and then help guide your organization to achieve your objectives. And it starts by just having a discussion candidly and saying, here's what we're trying to accomplish. How can you help us solve this problem? There is no such thing any further as one size fits all.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks for sharing these insights with us. It's helpful to hear not only where the retail industry as a whole is headed, but also where our members, NGA grocers, are headed, how they're lining up and matching up. NGA members who are listening today, I want to thank you, and we look forward to supporting your success in the future.
Thank you, everyone. Look forward to seeing you at the executive conference or the NGA show. Take care.